Well, hello, my friends. I'm Charles Smith, your host of the Amazing Happy Village, where we believe your children are amazing. They deserve to be happy, and it requires a village to help them to succeed. So just like every show, we want to sow into you so that you can sow into your children so that they will be able to soar in the world. So I want you to get your pen and paper ready today because I have two fantastic guests with me today. And I'm telling you, when it comes to talking about a village, these two have demonstrated what it's like to be able to be a village to children. I have with me today no other than Dr. Loria Gordon and Pastor Vance Gordon. Thank you, duo, for being with us on the Amazing Happy Village today.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Well, we're excited because we know that it does require a village to raise a child. I mean, our parents need that village. Our children need that village. And we want to bring the village to them. We want to give them some nuggets, some things that they can use to help them sow into their children. Because the number one goal is for those children is to soar. We're raising a generation. We're not just raising a child. So let me just start with you, Dr. Gordon. Tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing, and then we'll hear from Pastor Gordon.
Wow, what am I doing? Well, I'm an educator of over 27 years.
Wow.
I started my career actually in radio and television and moved into teaching. I learned at about age 20 that I was a teacher, but I didn't want to be a teacher because I thought the only thing you could do with education was to teach. And I thought a requirement for teaching was smoking because I saw all the smoke coming from under the teacher's lounge when I was in elementary and middle school. Later, I found through other educators in my undergraduate tenure that there were other things that you can do. But I didn't change my major from communications. I later pursued a master's degree in education and eventually a PhD because I realized after I had an opportunity to struggle with God a little bit about what it was I was supposed to do, I realized that throughout my life I had been helping others, tutoring my cousin, going to the elementary school when I was in middle school to tutor, helping my friends with their homework and things of that nature. And I think that really helped me to say, yes, education is the route for you. And that's how I ended up being an educator.
Sound like a calling to me, Dr. Gordon.
Absolutely a calling. Absolutely. A very rewarding calling.
Absolutely. Investing in the children. Amen. Pastor Gordon, tell us a little bit about what you do. I know you're out in the communities in the educational realm, and you're with the youth outside of the homes, outside of the school, where it's really important, the community. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, for the past almost 24 years, I've served as the area director for Young Life Youth Outreach Ministry. For some, we call it Young Life Youth Outreach Organization because I do work in the schools in conjunction with Jackson Public Schools. I'm the area director for Inner City Jackson. We have Young Life in private schools as well as now I serve also as one of the campus ministers at Jackson State as Young Life College Director at JSU. So I've had that title now and served in that capacity for probably the past 5 years at JSU. Great. So and I worked for Jackson Public School for 7 years, working with special education in the high school division, working with juniors and seniors for a program called the Work Experience Training Project. And my job there was to help juniors and seniors improve in their reading and math skills. And then half of my day was to find jobs for them in the community. And so that was very rewarding. I did that for 7 years. And then I found out about Young Life, volunteered for Young Life one summer, 1 year, and the rest is history. So over 30-some years of working with young people
Wow.
in this community.
Wow.
So I love it.
Wow.
I really love it. That's my passion. That's my calling. Can't get away from it. I thought I was too old to still be working with teenagers, and then God gave me Young Life College at JSU. So I'm enjoying it still.
That is awesome. Let me just say this one more time. If you're listening now, get your pen and paper ready, because you just heard a little bit about what you're about to receive right now. So, Dr. Gordon, I want to just ask you this. You're an educator. Why? And I'm asking this question because our children today seem to lose some of the motivation like we used to have for education. So the first question I want to ask is, why did you decide to get into education and then become an educator?
Well, I got into education because I didn't want God to continue to give me spankings for not doing what He had already told me that I needed to do. Once I got into education, I thought eventually I would become a superintendent, and that was going to be the rest of history for me. That's actually what I did my dissertation. I did a national study on the African American superintendency. And so that's the direction I thought I was going in, and then God opened doors for me in higher ed. I had been a middle school teacher. I loved every day of my middle school days. And a lot of people say, middle school? No, not middle school. But what I've learned over the course of my years is that education is everywhere, and we have to be lifelong learners. And so what we have to do, we have to encourage. I think we have to model, too. A lot of people don't want to accept that you're a model. People watch what you do more so than what you tell them to do, especially children, especially young people. So if you're hanging out and they never see you with a book, why are you going to tell them to read a book? If you walk into a house and there are no books in the house, how do you expect them to learn? How do you expect them to move in another direction? If you were in a church and your church is not pushing education, we got a problem.
Right.
And so all those things come together full circle so that we can encourage our young people to pursue education. And college is not for everybody.
Right.
Some people need education in other ways. Some people get education in the military. Mm-hmm. Some people will go and get an associate's degree or some other kind of training, certification, licensure. There's some licensures you can get now in technology. If you can work through the time and actually earn it, you can earn just as much money as somebody with a PhD. But we have to make sure that we're posturing children and young people to understand that you have to have some kind of education and you have to be a lifelong learner. I don't think there's anybody who's ever went into a job or position or a career and they didn't have to learn something new.
That's a fact.
Yeah, so that's the whole truth there, that as it relates to education.
So you don't have to go to college, but you have to be educated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
On something.
Something.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point there about modeling it. I tell parents all the time, a child will not hear your advice because your advice is hiding behind what you are demonstrating.
Amen.
And they're going to see what you're demonstrating before they hear your advice. Mm-hmm. And your demonstration trumps advice every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time.
So, Pastor God, I'm gonna come to you real quick. You work with team.
Yes, sir.
That's not always easy, my friend. Why are you working with team?
Well, that's a good question. I just believe that teenagers are at that age where they're looking, like you say, they're looking for somebody they can model their life after. When a person becomes a teenager, they're really putting together and they're trying to map out their life. So they're looking for examples. Yeah. And so, I grew up in a single parent home in South Central Los Angeles. My mother raised 3 children by herself. My dad left us when I was 7. So by the time I got to that stage where I'm looking at girls, I'm trying to figure out things, he wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And so my mother put me in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and my Boy Scout leader was a pedophile, and so that turned me off against Boy Scouts, and so I started playing Little League football, Little League baseball. One of my Little League football coaches was a pedophile, and so again, I'm still looking for that male person that I could pattern my life after, because I knew that wasn't right. I didn't want to get involved with that. Gang banging was everywhere in South Central, so I didn't want that. So my heroes were law enforcement officers. You know, my Little League baseball coach and football coach was my second football coach was LA Sheriffs. So our coaches was the LA Sheriffs Department. So I played in the Sheriff League. And so I would watch these guys come and have their sheriff jackets on, the windbreakers, they have their sidearm on, they get out their vehicle and they pull out their whistle and they call practice together. So I wanted to do that. And so eventually, like my wife said, I knew college wasn't for me, so I joined the military because I had a goal of being a police officer. So I became a military police officer, and again, like my wife said, God had other plans for me. He sent me back to Jackson and said, I got something for you to do. So I came back to Jackson kicking and screaming. I moved here when I was 16, so I'm kind of throwing that in there. But to answer your question, I work with teenagers because I know they need adults who they can trust.
Yes.
And who they can pattern themselves after. And so, and that's just been my calling. That's just been where I landed. I will work with the little children. I don't like them too much, but
you do a good job with them.
I have fun with them.
They're wearing on you now.
Because of my grandchildren, they're wearing on me. But the real answer to that, man, is young teenagers. I found they can hold intelligent conversations. They can ask questions and they want real answers, but more importantly, they want an adult that they can trust, that's going to be there, that's not going to let them down, that's not going to lie to them, keep their word, you know. And so once I started working with teenagers in Jackson Public School, you know, I jumped right in with high school juniors and seniors, and these were special needs kids. These were kids who were in special education, but my role was to help improve them in reading and math, and then to go find a job and meet with the employer, line it up, set it up, ensure that they will be successful. And man, I have young people now who are married, and I've worked with deaf kids, and I couldn't speak sign language, you know, but I knew how to talk slow so they can read my lips. I came up with my own sign language, and so from there, you know, I just fell in love with working with young people and teenagers in particular, because when they knew they could trust you, the sky was the limit. You know, I've had a gun pulled on me a couple times because I did a lot of home visits, you know, and have to go work in the home with the young people, have to take them to get perms and haircuts so they could be presentable for job interviews. Man, I loved it, you know, but it was a year-to-year grant that we wrote, Dr. Diane Brady and I, and it was a grant. So eventually the grant ran out, and by the time the grant ran out, Young Life was right there and said, come on. And I never missed a beat, you know. And now working with Young Life, I always knew that the answer was Christ. And so working for Jackson Public School, I knew the answer was Christ, but I knew also separation of church and state. So from time to time, I would take my badge off and say, okay, this is off the record. You and your child need to be in church, you know, that kind of deal. And so it worked, you know, and it still works now. And I'm like Magic Johnson said, and I'm going to give it back to my wife. I can talk a lot. But Magic Johnson said years ago, he said, I can't believe I get paid for what I would do for free. When he was a basketball player. He said, I can't believe I get paid for what I would do for free. That's kind of how I feel with working with young people.
That's truly a calling. And you still have that same motivation, that passion. I can hear it in your voice when you talk about it. And I want to ask a couple more questions before I get back to Dr. Gordon about her opinion on some things. But I want to get back to that. But we'll do that right after we take this first message we are today being sponsored by what we call some of the best coffees there is. earthblendcoffee.co. Black owned, roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Order at earthblendcoffee.co.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Well, welcome back to the Amazing Happy Village, where we have a duo couple with us today, an educator and a pastor. And I'm telling you, they're dropping some gems. So if you're just joining, stop, get your pen and paper, and get ready. I want to go to you, Dr. Gordon, and ask you your opinion on why do you think, as Pastor was saying, when you are those teenagers, they're looking for people that they can model. They've learned some things. They've learned who to trust, who not to trust, and right now they're watching. And if you're not demonstrating, you can lose them. Why is it that so many of our children are not interested in continuing their education, in your opinion?
I say our issue is that our children spend too much time watching what other folks are doing on the television. They need a reality check. Okay, and then the other part is environment. We're seeing too many folks walking up and down the streets in some of our communities at 8 o'clock in the morning when they should be at work. So there are a lot of things that our children are seeing, our young people are seeing. And so with them looking at that and seeing it, that's what they're going to want to emulate. That's what they're going to want to model. And so we got to make sure that we expose them to other people, other circumstances, other situations, and other environments. I had a program many years ago, and our program, what we did with our students, our goal was to prepare them for graduate education. And so how do you prepare them? You take them to visit graduate schools. My parents, when I was growing up, my dad that reared me said, I want you to do better than I did. And so they would take us to some of the affluent suburb areas in Chicagoland, which is where I grew up, and just let us drive by, and we were like, I'm going to have a house like that, or I'm going to have a house like that, or I want a house like that. Or you had teachers who really authentically cared about you and exposed you to other opportunities. My 4th grade teacher was later my 5th grade teacher, who was eventually called my godmother. And my parents hadn't gone to college. They moved north with the Great Migration. And so I was exposed to college by her daughters. And she had a set of twin daughters, and she had a older daughter. And her daughter finished college at 21. And my parents used to say, you're going to college, you're going to college, you're going to college. And I just thought, okay, well, she went at 21, and I would talk to her and see her and look like life was so wonderful. She finished her undergrad at 21. I said, I'm going to do the same thing. So we got to Put them in front of people who are doing things, not in front of televisions. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me that they had a newborn baby, 6, 7 months old, in front of the television. They don't need the television. I told that person, turn the television off, play that baby some music, get that baby a red balloon, and let that baby watch that balloon fly around in the room on the edge of that bed. Stimulate the brain. Hug that baby. Talk to that baby. Don't put that baby in front of a television and then you go handle your business. So it's so many things that we're modeling and so many things that we're doing that's not allowing the neurons in our brain, the dendrites we start with, to turn out to be very strong, healthy neurons through stimulation. The 5 senses are important for a reason.
Wow.
So that's a whole lot said, but there's a whole lot that's going on in our environments, in our homes, in our schools, what children see, what they're exposed to, and we got to do a better job ensuring that they have access and opportunity so they can make some decisions about how education can help them, what level of education, what kind of education. But the real truth is we all have to be educated each and every day.
Wow. That's real heavy. That's real heavy. That is so true, though. I am just so sad.
She's a heavy lady.
She is, right? So, based on what Dr. Gordon just taught us, because I learned something. I mean, that is, because people are using, Pastor Gordon, you know this, the television as babysitters now.
Right.
Just to keep their attention, not realizing that what you are planting, their minds are like the soil. It's rich. And the farmers understand that the land don't care what you plant, but it will return what you plant.
Right.
Our children's minds are richer than the soil. They don't care what you plant, but they will return what you plant.
Yeah.
So our question to you is, working with teens with the passion that you have, how can parents, let's say I didn't do what I was supposed to do, I made some mistakes, but now I have my teenager here. And sometimes they'll talk to you, won't talk to them. How can we as parents communicate? And it's not always about talking to them, but how can we communicate with these young folk that you've worked so long with?
Well, I'm going to piggyback, to answer that question, I'm going to piggyback on what my wife just shared about the science behind the brain and stimulation. Our young people now are being stimulated the wrong way. The neurons are not being flowed. I'm going to take some of her scientific knowledge. They're being stimulated by the endorphins in their brain. They're getting endorphins, and the endorphins hits the pleasure-seeking part of the brain. So our young folks are all about pleasure.
Wow, that's it.
Them endorphins, boom, they hitting it.
Yes.
So the stuff that we used to watch on TV doesn't do anything for them now. They want more, and that's what that endorphin. So now they have the cell phone. See, at least the stuff that's on TV can be monitored.
Yeah.
The FCA will only allow certain things.
Yes.
But now what I'm seeing is parents getting kids cell phones and the internet in their hands at early ages. Yeah. And so that sparks the endorphins in the brain. And these children want more of it, and they want more of it. So now endorphins are spiked by excitement. So they want that excitement, the adrenaline rush. And they're doing all kind of things to get it. The teenagers are. No longer will they stop when you tell them to stop, because the endorphins in their brains, they have taken over. And now they're out of control. And so, but to answer your question, it's one of those hard things that parents have to do. And they have to go back and understand you are responsible for that child. The child didn't ask to be here.
Right.
So and it starts when they're little, but I work with teenagers. So even as a teenager, it can still happen, but it takes that almost like, I told you earlier, I was more afraid of my parents than I was the police. My mom, not my dad wasn't around. So, and my mother was 4'11".
Wow.
So I was taller than my mother in the 6th grade. So, but I was more afraid of that short left-handed woman than I was of the police.
Wow.
So if she said be in the house when that street light come on, I don't care what my friends were doing. My mother would embarrass me. And she would say, wherever you act a fool, I'm act a fool with you.
Okay.
You know, so she was old school.
Yeah.
But it kept me out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
And like my wife, I would see what type of lifestyle I wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to see one day I'm going to have a house like that. One day I'm going to get that car.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and we grew up without a car. So we were the family in the neighborhood that walked to church, walked to the grocery store. We walked everywhere because when my dad left, he took the only car we had. But my mother wouldn't allow excuses. Parents now accept too many excuses from their children.
Right.
Parents, and to answer that question, Brother Charles, I'm going to say this. And parents have to be parents and not their children's friend.
Yeah.
I'm seeing too many parents nowadays are trying to be their children's friend versus their parent.
Right.
Children choose their parents. And I tell parents this. Children choose, they get to choose who their friends are. But they don't get to choose who their parents are. Yeah. And if they could choose who their parents were, they probably wouldn't choose you. And they probably wouldn't choose me. Right. If my children could choose who they want as a parent, they probably wouldn't choose me. But they don't get that choice. God created it that way.
Right.
I brought them here. Then he gave me the responsibility to raise them. Parents are, you know, they're giving up their responsibility. They're advocating it to someone else. They're giving it to the cell phone. They're giving it to the school. Go to school. So when the pandemic hit, parents didn't want their own children no more. They were so used to just sending them to school, educate them. Go, you train them. You train them up. No, the Bible says parents train up a child in the way that they should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it.
Right.
So over my years working in the school system and passing teacher lounges, you would hear teachers say, "You got so and so in your class? Oh Lord, that kid ain't got no home training." Why? Because home training happens at home.
Yes.
Then you send them to school to be educated.
Right.
But if they hadn't been trained at home, they're not going to know how to follow the teacher's instruction because they're getting their own way at home.
Right.
Parents need to take back control, not fear the system, and then remember that you were once a child yourself.
Oh.
And if you can remember you were once a child, it's easier to communicate with your child.
Pastor Gordon, I've said that is actually in my book, 7 Steps to Raising Amazing Children.
Well, my wife been telling me to write a book. You beat me to it.
Because I'm going to say it right now. And one of the things that I always say, you know, how can you raise a child if you don't know a child? And let me say this, because what you said is very clear. If you have a child, and, you know, like my daughter's, she'll say it now, she's 40, one of the twins. Didn't like me as a parent, right? Now, she respect and loved me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? But it wasn't because I wasn't her best friend.
Right.
You know, because I had to make some hard decisions. I mean, whatever you watched in this house, I don't care. And their thing was everybody in the world is watching it. Why we can't watch it? You know, I heard that over and over again.
Right.
But I had rules. Well, we'll all sit down and watch it. Because if I watch it, but the rules apply to me too. I wasn't going to watch anything that they couldn't watch. Right. And they couldn't watch anything that I couldn't watch or the whole family couldn't watch. But that made me the strictest mean parent,
right?
But they turn out the way I envision.
Amen.
I say all the time, we as parents have to be intentional.
Amen. That's right.
It's not just Tiger Woods' dad intentional about him being a pro golfer one day, or the Williams sister dad being intentional, because they did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
We have to do what we're supposed to do at this point as well.
Right.
So I hope my viewers are writing this down, and I want to say this too. I think Dr. Gordon is right. You really do need to put pen to paper and put that in some type of a book, because what I found out was we know that there's a guide to help raise our children,
Right.
but nobody's turning to that guide.
Exactly.
The first step in raising amazing children is who's influencing you.
Right.
Because you both know that if you look up the word leadership, you're going to find, if you describe leadership with one word, it would be influence. If you're not influencing your children, who are influencing them?
Right.
And who's influencing you? So if God's not influencing you, then whoever's influencing you is influencing your children.
That's right. I have a game that I play with parents and children when I do parenting conferences. I say parent pressure has to be stronger than peer pressure.
Wow, I love that.
And so what I do is I get a ping pong ball and put it in the center of the table. I get a parent on this end and a child on this end. I said, whoever blows the ball the hardest, that's the direction the ball is going to go.
Hold that thought for a second. We're going to come right back after this message. Today's show is sponsored by, our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co.
Have you had your Earth Blend
Black
coffee
owned,
today?
roasted right here in Jackson.
At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Well, welcome back to the amazing Happy Village, where we have with us Dr. Gordon and Pastor Gordon. Pastor, we were talking about the game that you play. I love it. And we had to go to a commercial, but I want you to pick that up and share something.
Yeah,
a little bit
it's
more.
just a simple game to explain what I mean by parent pressure has to be stronger than peer pressure.
So that's something I don't want them to forget. That was key. That's why I wanted to come back to it. I said it again.
Parent pressure
pressure
has to be stronger than peer pressure.
Wow. And you know,
Peer pressure is strong.
Yes.
You know, and what's pushing our children in the direction like that ping pong ball. Whoever blows the hardest, the parent or the child. The child represents their peers. The parent represents the parents. So you drop that ping pong ball in the middle of a table or any flat surface and say blow. Whoever blows the hardest, that's the direction the ball is going to go. The ball represents that teenager. The parent continues to apply that pressure. The ball, the child goes where the parent wants it to go.
Wow.
But what happens in our society, parents have advocated their responsibility.
Yeah.
And so children have no direction. They're being tossed in fro, here and there.
Yeah.
And there are people waiting, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They're waiting to point them in the direction they want them to go. But it's the parents' responsibility. God gave them, you know, I don't want to preach, but brother, look here, that's what motivates me. You know, that's what motivates me.
You've said that at least 50 times since you've been here. It's parents' responsibility.
It is, you know, but, you know, I've watched parents, because I'm in the community.
Right.
I'm at the Henley Young Detention
Yeah.
Center.
Wow.
I was the mentoring coordinator for the Henley Young Detention Center. I've watched parents say, I need help with my child. But then when it comes to them being responsible for bringing them here, taking them there. Remember back in the day when parents had to provide book bags?
Yes.
And the writing utensils and paper and everything for their children for the first day of school? Who's
Yes.
doing it now? Now they're having book bag drives everywhere, this child. And then the teachers are sending a list home saying, I need this for my classroom, hand sanitizer, paper towels, this, that, and the other. When did that start? If you look back when we were children, that wasn't happening then.
Right.
Parents had to provide what their children needed for school.
Right.
And so even as young as even something that simple, parents, they ride up to this church and that church and they go over to this community center and they pick up pencil and paper and book bags. Some parents really do need the help.
Right.
I'm not saying that they don't. But then you have the needy versus the greedy.
Right.
And so you see the greedy getting the supplies where the needy are still in need.
Right.
And
Wow.
so, I can go on all day, but it's a lot of what we're dealing with is because parents are not being parents. They're too busy trying to be their children's friend.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Dr. Gordon, we do have some parents, and I'm not going to make excuses for them because my daughters will tell you, and Pastor Gordon mentioned it, you don't have excuses. My daughters will tell you, whatever excuse they gave me, I would say, the dog ate it. What? The dog ate, because one excuse is just as good as any. So the dog could eat it, doesn't really matter. But Dr. Gordon, I want to ask you this question. Some of our parents didn't go to a 4-year college, didn't go to a junior college, maybe it didn't even go to high school. And how easy is it for them, you being as an educator, because sometimes the children need to, to see them, because it's got to be some trust here, okay? So if they would demonstrate some things, how easy is it if I wanted to go back to school and do some things as a parent?
First of all, we demonstrate education in the house in so many ways.
Yes.
And you made me think about my dad who graduated from 9th grade. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. But he read the newspaper every day. And when he finished reading, he passed down the paper to me. He asked me about my homework. What did I have for homework? He challenged me on my spelling words. I got a 9th grade education. I bet you I can spell these words before you can spell these words. So we got to spend time. We got to invest time with our children, know what's going on with them. And there's ways that we can encourage them. It doesn't matter what our education level is. We just got to help them to understand that the decision makers, they're getting an education in some form, fashion. Okay, and then for us as African Americans, we got to figure out, how do we get in? How do we get to the place where we can make decisions? Okay, and we're going to get in either by our talent or our gift, a mentor, somebody who sponsors us, our money, and that ain't what's going to be happening right now. Our money, or just simply the grace of God. But we got to position ourselves to be able to be at the table. And so for those parents who have chosen, hey, not to go on to college or not to get a certification or a licensure, make sure your kids have the right books in the house. Encourage your children to read. You can read and see the whole world in the book. I love Dr. Seuss's book, all the places we would go. And it's just simply from reading, and you can read it. You can go to all kind of places, see all kinds of things, and be exposed. Access and opportunity opens many, many doors for us to use our talents, our gifts, the Holy Spirit that lives within us, the environment, our exposure, to just choose a different trajectory. So for those who want to go back to school, you got to decide what it is you want to do, how you want to go. I have a sister, she was a CNA for many, many years, and the people in the hospital saw her skill level. She didn't want to go to school. She didn't want anything at going to school. That 8-week course or whatever it was long enough for her and too long. but they were able to see her talents and her skills, and they encouraged her to enroll into a junior college class, one class, to get a certification to become a wound specialist, and it bumped her salary like $10,000 a year. So we got to see what our talents and what our skills are, what our passions are, and we can't look for all the traditional ways to move up in a job or in a career. There's so many other ways that we can get in, and people can recognize our talents, our skills, our dedication, the knowledge that we do have from our experiences, and help us move forward. But if you want to go to school, figure out what it is you want to do, figure out where the opportunity lies, whether it's in a certificate, it's in a licensure, or it's actually in a degree. And those programs exist all over, and there's so much going on now as it relates to COVID. Lots of programs, more programs than ever, will be online.
That is really good. My mom had a third grade education, by the way, but that didn't stop from asking, you completed your homework? Let me see. Right. You know, so the idea we have to be involved, and you mentioned spending the time. I've always said that children spell love T-I-M-E. Right. And if they're getting that time from you, then you'll see the benefits. But if they're not getting it from you, whoever they're getting it from, they're going to see the benefits. And you can't wait until they get up there in age and then start trying to dictate when you've lost, like you said with that ping pong ball, you've lost to the peer pressure because you didn't apply the pressure. I love that.
I know one of the things I tell my college students, I said, okay, particularly those who are coming in for their first year, I said, how old are you? 17 or 18? Typically 18. I said, this is what I want you to know. If you need some assistance or some advice, it's great to talk to your friend, but let you know this. An 18-year-old asking another 18-year-old for advice is only getting 18-year-old advice.
Yes.
So you need something so much broader than that, so much bigger than that. And so we talk about parents, but you know, once our children leave and go into other environments, our hope is that we can be a parent to somebody else's kid.
That's good.
You know, so you're still a parent, but now, you know, you may not be parenting yours because they've gone off to school, but you're in an environment where you can parent somebody else's. So parenting doesn't ever go away. And you talk about the village piece, we have to realize parents are grandparents. Parents are people in the community, and you don't have to have given birth to be a parent. Some people have that intuitively, and they can help. And we got to open our eyes and be open enough to help have other people, and welcome enough to have other people to help us in our parenting. Grown folk.
Yes.
Grown folks, we gotta, you know, go back to sitting on the porch with the old people and having conversations.
Yes.
We've so many. I think this Y generation, this I generation, I think they miss so much of that. Sitting on the porch with the old people, you learn so much, so much.
Yes, my older aunties, you know, they all live close together. I can't tell you the value they brought to me that I just simply were able to pass on to my children. Had it been for them, I would have missed out on that, you know, because my mom was like the youngest of 11, and so I had that wisdom all around me. And they used to live close together, sitting on the, we used to call it the garret. I believe it was. So that's good. So piggybacking off of what Dr. Gordon said, Pastor Gordon, our teenagers now, and you've been doing this a long time, and you've seen a lot of things. Some parents, are they getting involved? And I know I remember seeing something on Facebook where one of the adults' children had come through Young Life, went on a trip, and now his daughter was going on a trip, right? Do you see that a lot? Do your parents get involved?
Well, you know, I'm at that age now where...
That is saying something about your age.
Right, I'm at that age now where I've been doing it long enough to where I am now taking children of the children that I used to work with, who are now parents. Actually, we ran into one Tuesday at the Farmers Market in Clinton. One of my former Young Life young ladies from Jim Hill. and she had her family with her. And I said, is she old enough to go to camp yet? And so for the past, I think for the past 3 years now, I've been working with children of children that I work with.
Wow.
And so you saw that Facebook post of Ronnie Jr.
Yes.
and his daughter. But his sister Nadia, I took her to camp, and I've taken both of her sons now.
Oh.
And so it's starting to recycle, is what I like to call it. It's working. It's working. And so I'm grateful. I know we're about to go to commercial, but my wife said something about sitting on the porch and spending time with older adults, and that's what has worked with Young Life. It's older adults who love the Lord and have a heart for teenager, whether they're in college or working adults or retired. You love the Lord and you have a heart for young people. Get involved. And so I just took 27 young people and leaders to the mountains of Georgia for a week. But part of going is you have to leave your cell phone. You cannot bring your cell phone. And so, away from distractions, social media,
television,
we sat in rocking chairs and just chopped it up. One-on-one time, a lot of fun, a lot of free time, hearing a message of hope on a level that they could understand.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, young people, I'm not going. I can't take my cell phone. They don't want to detach themselves. That now has become their lifeline.
Yeah.
And so we have to take that serious. Parents have to take that serious. And so when my children were young, I can honestly say I've never paid a cell phone bill. I was that parent that, like you, had rules. You don't need a cell phone.
Right.
You don't need a cell phone.
Or a pager, like we used to say back in the day. Hold that thought, Pastor, because what I want to talk to you about when we get back is how all of us, like Dr. Gordon said, have to be parents, not just the parent. Today's show is brought to you by our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. Black owned, roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Order at earthblendcoffee.co.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Well, welcome back to the amazing Happy Village, where I have with me today the Dr. Loria Gordon and Pastor Vince Gordon. And listen, get your pens for this last segment that we have, because we're going to be talking about, and I want to hear from both of you on this one, really this village. We can't say at this day and time, Dr. Gordon, I got mine raised. I've done my job. We can't do that. What do we need to? What message do we need to give to all adults about being involved rather than just talking about. You see them, and it's easy, Pastor, to talk about the child. But the child is modeling probably something that they see at home, and we can be a model for them, and we don't have to be in their home. Mm-hmm. They're looking for, just like you said, they're looking for something. Mm-hmm. What can we do? Let's start with you, Dr. Gordon.
Wow. Well, first of all, in our work environments, we can be models there. And we may not even be modeling for an actual child, but we may be modeling for an adult there who has children in their home.
Good.
So that's important. Then the other piece is when we're out in our community, whether we're in the grocery store or we're in the mall, etc., we gotta look like we grown folk who are about some business, and setting the example so that if there's somebody in there, they may see something different. They may ask you a question. I've been in, my favorite store is Macy's when I'm traveling, but I've been in the store and, a young person just starts talking. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I'm really trying to shop, but let me pay attention to what they're trying to say, because they're saying something to me or they're trying to start some conversation, for some reason. And I think, when you're in tune with the Holy Spirit, it can tell you what direction that could be going in. If somebody's getting ready to try a scam, or if somebody's really just seeing something different. And then the other place, is the church. People understand, and I know our pastor says all the time, it's a hospital for sick people, but there's so many people in this world who just think all the people in the church, they got it right. Because they're in the church, they have it right. They're doing it right. But we got to realize, no, we're trying to get it right. Each day, a closer walk with thee. Each day, a little bit more like Jesus. And so in that piece, we got to make ourselves available, and we have to, again, be the examples in the church. We don't want to be the people in the church who turn somebody off.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We want to be the people in the church who turn people on, so people can ask you the question and make yourself available even in the church. So from the job to what you're doing in the community to what you're doing in the church, I call that full circle. You need to just make yourself available and be a true example. People see who you are. They watch you and they listen. We have a niece at the house with us right now, and she knows who Jesus is. She knows what family values are, and she knows what the family values are in our home, but now she's getting an opportunity to see what Christian love looks like, what a Christian family looks like, what it means simply by how we live. And I just believe that in the next year or so, we're going to see how amazing the work God's going to do in her and through her. And so that's the availability.
That's amazing, because you're modeling, and that's what they want to see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to give you time, Pastor, to talk on that same subject, what we can do with, because we all got to listen. It's going to affect all of us if they turn out wrong.
Right.
We can't escape it.
Yeah, we're seeing that now.
Yes, you can move anywhere. Anywhere.
Yeah, we're seeing
it's coming.
It's coming.
Yes,
we're seeing that now. It takes a village, and I like what your show, The Amazing Happy Village. Every village is not a happy village.
True.
It takes a village to raise a child. We've heard that for years. But now we have to see what's in our village. Mm-hmm. A lot of our young people are not seeing working class folks in their village.
Wow, that's true.
Again, I go back to what they see. And so when I'm in the schools, I'm making sure young people see me with my pants up. Guys see me opening the doors for ladies. They see me well shaved. They see, our bass player at New Horizon. When he was in high school, I taught a group of juniors and senior boys how to tie ties. And I brought a bunch of my ties. And it was just a tie-tying class. Yeah. And so when he came as the bass player, he said, I remember you taught me how to tie a tie. And so I said, do you remember? Mm-hmm. He said, yes, sir. But anyway, it's about making yourselves available. Like I said, for me, it was my uncles. I was like Lot. And so God gave me a message years ago called "Who's Gonna Rescue Lot?" Lot didn't have a dad. Lot didn't have parents. He had an uncle. Abraham was his uncle, but Abraham taught Lot about business. You know, their business grew so much that they had to separate. Their workers started arguing with each other.
Right.
You know, so Abraham said, look, our people don't need to fight. And so even in that, he was still teaching his nephew.
Right.
And so my uncle, I was such a knucklehead growing up. I had to have 3 Abraham. So I had, I had an uncle that taught me the value of hard work. I had an uncle that taught me how to have fun. I had an uncle who had the neatest, cleanest yard, manicured yard in South Central LA. And so I had 3 uncles who spent time with me that I gleaned from. And then I had an uncle who married my Aunt Hazel, who loved the Lord and was a clown. He was just a funny guy. And that was the marriage I always wanted to have. I didn't see it at home because my dad left. But I saw Uncle Lester and Aunt Hazel, and I was like, one day I want that kind of marriage. Where they went to church together, they had fun, they laughed, they clowned each other, they talked about each other's parents, you know. And I have that now. You know, I have that now. We laugh and we talk and we joke and we get on each other's nerve, but at the end of the day, we're a team. You know, but young people need to see that in our community. That's part of the missing piece, that they're not seeing something that they want to behold. You become what you behold. So if they're beholding drug dealers, if they beholding women out in public with hair bonnets and pajamas and house slippers out in public, you know, they're gonna think that's normal. That's houseware. That's bedroom wear. And we're seeing that in our community. I don't see that when I go to other communities. But in our community, it's becoming the norm. And so we're lowering the standards in our village. And so our village is now starting to turn on each other. And so, man, we have to, people who have the knowledge and who have the time and like I said, love the Lord and have a heart for teenagers and young people, make yourself available. My house was always the house, ever since I've been working back in Jackson. Young people came and played basketball in my house. I always had a basketball goal. We still have one now, where kids in the community would just stop by. And I said, as long as I said, don't mess with my daughters, no fighting and no cussing. And after a while, I would leave my side door open where they can just come upstairs and play pool. And they knew that was a safe house. Nobody in that house was going to violate them, but we had rules. And so we have to get back to that and understand that, you know, God is going to ask us as believers and as adults who have made it. He told Abraham, I'm going to bless you to be a blessing, not to keep it to yourself. And so he has blessed us, you included, to be a blessing. And so that's our role. That's our responsibility.
That's really good. Just to be able to have a place where a child will feel comfortable to come and hang out and then get something while they are hanging out, because here are the rules. In other words, some structure. Expectations. Because they're going to they're looking for it. They may not always act like that's what they want, but it's something that we need, that structure.
You know, one of the saddest things I've ever heard working with young people, I had a kid tell me, my mama don't care what I do. My mama don't care nothing about me. She let me do whatever I want to do. I had a child tell me that. Mr. Gordon, my mama don't let me do it. She don't care nothing about me. She let me do whatever I want to do. What that said is, this child wanted boundaries. This child wanted boundaries and didn't get them, and equated that to, my parents don't care anything about me because they let me do whatever I want to do.
And I want to add to the boundary piece, you know, because a lot of young folks, you know, think the Bible is all about telling you what you can't do. We have to help them to understand it tells you all about what you can do. It teaches you all about the mistakes other people have made that you don't have to make. It teaches you about the abundant living and how you work for it and how you do honest things. And so we got to help get rid of that myth that this is a book about all you can't do. You know, because God has given us all the boundaries we need. And so if we could figure out how we can encourage young people to open up to look at it, you know. I tell my college students, just read one scripture. Just one. All I want you to read is one scripture. Because if you can read one scripture, soon enough it's going to get good enough that you're going to have to read 2 scriptures.
Right.
And then eventually you'll be reading a chapter.
Right.
You know, and so just a few nuggets here and there, a little meat. Just a little bit of meat so that you can keep on moving forward and you keep pushing. And that's important.
It's very important.
Well, I wanted to mention prove them wrong before we get out of here. You know, I keep referencing stories in the Bible. Prove them wrong is something that God gave me, PEW, which stands for prove them wrong. You know, there's a story about a 17-year-old guy named Joseph in the Bible. 17 years old. You know, his family sold him out. They didn't believe in him.
They did.
But God gave him a dream.
Yes.
And he changed the nation. And he proved folks wrong. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to empower young people, because it has to come from within you.
Yes.
To prove people wrong. You know, and so I have a ton of success stories of young people who bought into it, who believed in me, what I was sharing with them, you know, and like I said, prove them wrong. Prove folks wrong. There's a lot of people who are against you. And if any of our young folks are watching as parents, help your children prove people wrong. They can succeed. You know, I'm considered a successful African-American male, but I don't have a college degree like my wife. I went to the military.
Right.
And I try to encourage young folks, if you're not sure what you want to do, check out the military, man. It is good. More folks have died on the streets of Jackson than have died in the whole Afghanistan war. If you don't believe me, look that up. Google it.
Pastor, it looked like you proved them wrong.
I proved them wrong. I proved them wrong.
Well, listen, time passed. I appreciate you all so much. Again, this show has been brought to you today by our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. Black owned, roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Order at earthblendcoffee.co.
Thank you so much.
Yes.